as someone who loves traveling, we shouldn't have to choose between traveling and saving the planet, like seeing the world and saving it. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Voice of Gen Z podcast. I'm Sabah from the marketing and growth team at Climes, and this is my second time hosting. It's great to be back. I have with me today Mr. Nikhilendra Singh, founder and managing director of RAAS Hotels. RAAS offers a collection of 4 unique properties located across Rajasthan. They're beautiful heritage hotels brought up to date with a modern aesthetic and an eco-minded approach. Normally in these podcasts, we describe why our guest is considered part of Gen Z or Generation Climate. But this time I'm definitely going to let the conversation speak for itself. So we'll begin with introductions. It's great to have you here, Mr. Singh. Thank you so much. Could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and RAAS and how your journey began?
The first RAAS hotel came up about 12, 13 years ago. My brother and me found this, my brother found this very interesting old Haveli in the old city. And it was our first foray into the hotel business. It was an unusual site under the Mehrangarh Fort in the old city, which no one really had ventured into. But we thought the site had a lot of historical context. It had a beautiful background of the Mehrangarh Fort. It had a fantastic backdrop. It had everything a hotel would want. That's where we put our first hotel down. It was only meant to be a first hotel, but it did quite well. We have wonderful partners who then encouraged us to go on. And we went to our second one, Devigarh, which is another historic monument built by the Jhala family of Delwada, which had been lovingly restored by Mrs. Lekha Podar. That was our second. And then we went on to Chhatrasagar, which is between Jaipur and Jodhpur. It's another unique location on a. It's the tents are built on a dam on a private lake, where a lot of the land around it has been rewilded. So that's one of the main reasons we took over that property, because our beliefs over the last few years have been changing. We are more interested in sort of protecting wildlife, fauna, flora. So this was a nice way of doing it.
Yes, so before I'm going to ask you a lot of specifically about the different properties, because I know there's a lot of amazing things you're doing at each. But before I got into that, I wanted to talk about RAAS, the brand as a whole, which to me I would say is one of the most incredible brands in India, because it brings together these dichotomies of history, heritage, and then modern contemporary aesthetics, and then of course luxury hospitality with sustainability. And it's like a testament to the fact that one doesn't have to exist without the other. But interestingly, before you've said that this brand came about organically. And I wanted to understand a little bit more about what you meant when you said that, and how did it come about that these became the principles of the RAAS brand?
Well, I think, the first project was so close to one's heart. It was sort of, we didn't, I think the good thing is that we didn't purely look at it as a business. Even though, the sort of business has to be for it to sustain, you need a good business plan. But I think all of us who were involved, from my brother, English partners, from the architects to the consultants, everyone, all of us really loved the site. And we knew, I think instinctively that we were sitting on something very beautiful and we possibly had one shot at it. Because as you know, with construction, you construct something not, if you get things wrong, it's very difficult to correct them.
Yeah.
Purely, the money and the time and all of that. So all of us were extremely, I think, careful, and we were overcautious. Every decision we took, we spent a lot of time on it. We had a lot of discussions. We weren't in a tearing hurry to break ground. Because I think because it was so close to everyone's heart, it kind of, all our beliefs get, I suppose, transferred onto our beliefs or energies or whatever gets transferred onto then, the building, the people who come and work there. So I think that's how our kind of philosophy, was built up.
Yeah.
I think also living in Jodhpur, we're painfully aware of how harsh the climate is, in Jodhpur. We're just on the edge of the desert. Growing up here, we didn't have, we had what we call here sweet water every alternate day. Otherwise, we had brackish water in our taps. You couldn't really, you got water for 2 hours, you had to store up as much as you could. Also, I think our schooling, we went to Doon. So Doon had a very, contrary to its image, but I think it had a very, it was very austere in many ways, taught us to be austere. So I think all of this, impacts what you do, and I suppose RAAS was an opportunity where you could implement a lot of these things.
Yeah.
It's not always, easy to implement these things. So I think I consider myself very lucky that, with the 4 hotels, we have a team of about 450 people. We are able to do, implement a lot of these things.
Yeah, and I actually think the Jodhpur hotel in particular which I was lucky enough to visit a couple of months ago, so beautiful. And the perfect example of how you combine heritage with the contemporary aesthetics. So in the context of this particular property, what does it mean to preserve heritage by combining it with modern aesthetics? So how do you find the balance between what you keep from the past and what you change?
Well, I think it's it is a bit of a trial and error, situation. You've got to have a lot of faith in the architects you've chosen. So our architects at RAAS, Ambrish Arora and Rajiv Majumdar were extremely sensitive to the situation they found themselves in. You had this 15th century fort sitting above the property. You were surrounded by an old walled city. But also we were painfully, aware of the needs of a modern traveler. We had constraints on size, where we could build and how much room we had. Is actually a mixture of, a mix of reasons. So and it's not obvious in the beginning, but it kind of evolves and filters down to what then becomes a workable solution. So there's
Yeah.
some practical, there's obviously the aesthetics. There's some physical constraints. There's some cost constraints. They're your own vision of a hotel, the needs of the modern traveler. He wants the view, he wants the air conditioning, he wants 12-foot ceiling, he wants a 7-foot bed. So I think, I don't think it's one particular reason which but of course, our main thing was that when the landscape is grown and the buildings are slightly grown, it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb in the middle of the old city. So the architects, Ambrish and Rajiv, came up with the solution of having very quiet backdrops. I think the choice of materials is key. I find a lot of people making this mistake now, not investing in the right material in the beginning because it's easier to make or it's cheaper to make, and then having to live with it for the next 50 years on your building. So here we chose Jodhpur stone. I don't think the building really, ever. The whole setting is very quiet. It forms backdrops to the old buildings, and I think actually a lot of people said, it's possibly disrespectful to the old buildings for not imitating them or not copying something in that style. But I think, in fact, by highlighting our old buildings with these new quiet stone buildings, we were in fact able to make them stand out a little more. And by imitating, imitating something is not always, you're not always just respecting, but I think the old is there for us to learn and then, see
and
how
the stone
we can.
is similar to the Mehrangarh Fort stone also. So there are those like parallels here.
Yeah, it is. I think now it blends into the old city.
Yeah, it truly does. It's like if for anyone who goes to visit it, you just turn a corner and then you suddenly see this beautiful property like hidden within the city.
And I don't know if you went up to the fort, but if you stood up on the ramparts of the fort and you look down, the only thing that really sticks out is the swimming pool.
And then, of course, another big aspect of the brand is the sustainability, community investment, and conservation, which you'd already begun speaking about a little bit before, but wanted to deep dive into that a little bit more now, particularly with regard to Chhatrasagar and the rewilding you did there. What are all the sustainable practices you've implemented at RAAS hotels across?
Well, I'll start with RAAS. I think that's where we learned a lot because running a hotel in the middle of the old city has its own, things like water, electricity. Electricity is a very expensive commodity for the hotels. We consume a lot. If you're not able to control, forget about sustainability. Sustaining your first concern is, of course, sustaining your business, and low energy bills will always help you in that. So that was a given, and we've always been, brought up about, switching the lights off when you leave a room, and even at school, what you picked up at home. So I think we try, without trying to be over complicated, we try to implement all of that. We're aware of how water is. So that was incorporated in the design as well. Unfortunately, we're not able to retain all our rainwater because it would take up too much space to store it. But we certainly collect it, and then it flows into our tanks, and then the overflow, unfortunately, has to flow out. But So I think combining good business sense and sustainability in the beginning. Then we saw a lot of things happening at the hotel which I didn't like. Things like, plastic water bottles in the rooms. We are only a 40-room hotel. Yet we were, I think, average of 4 to 5 bottles of plastic being discarded every day. There was no way to recycle it. There was no way to see that it was put to some use. And that kind of made me think what we were doing and what we could change. So then we went on to glass, and this is about 7-8 years ago now, I think. Then we went on to glass bottles, mineral water in the room, and then finally, a few years ago, we were able to change to just simply having very nice filtered drinking water in the rooms. So a lot you learn on the business as well. You see the mistakes you're making, whether it's on plastic management or trash management or a little water we put in these a company called Altered. We put in their nozzles into the taps. So you learn a bit. You learn quite a lot of it on the job, and wherever we then felt we could make a difference, we did. Devigarh is an old palace, much bigger than Jodhpur.
Yeah.
So we acquired that hotel in 2015. And I found, the energy costs out there were not sustainable. So we really got into that, and we were able to bring down energy costs by like 30-40%. So, and today it's just marginally higher than Jodhpur. And this was also, it's also making everyone around you conscious, whether it's the guest or the team member, that, put your air conditioners on as long as you want, as long as you're in the room. When you're not there, it doesn't need to be on. It's slightly changing the mindset. In the old days when you went to a hotel in the city, Delhi, you put your air conditioner on the day you checked in, and then you switched off the day you left. You never switched it off. You never did that. So I think we're just trying to make our customers also a little aware of that. Work with team members.
Going to be one of my questions also, in that, like, customers don't always feel that way. For them, luxury stays mean, vacation state of mind, like you're saying, just leaving the AC on, etc. So how, like, apart from maybe speaking to them about it, like, how do you ensure that behavior from them without depriving them of the luxury state? Like, how have they responded to that?
Well, I think it's definitely the new generation of customers is definitely more aware of this now. They don't do it. They do it because it's for their own sort of peace of mind or conscience, or however you want to. I'm not sure what goes on their mind, but definitely they do feel, they do take ownership of these things. Even if they are in a different country, they are sensitive to it. Everyone's talking about it. It's on everyone's mind, and I think if you it's very difficult to tell a hotel guest that, first pay to stay at our hotel for X amount, and then say, actually, would you mind turning your air conditioner off every few hours, or setting it at 24, 25 degrees. But I think if you show that you take great pains to be a little sensitive to everything, then they do too. So
Yeah, I think,
you can't make it a punitive experience where you're always making someone feel guilty, because maybe there are 360 days of the year extremely austere, and then a few days they feel, okay,
yeah.
chill the room to 19 degrees, have a long bath, have a long shower. That's fair enough. Yeah. I honestly feel it's up to the hotels to make it easier for the guests to enjoy themselves. I think the onus is on us. We've chosen to go into this line of business. So I think the responsibility is a lot on us to make it
Yeah,
a nice experience.
yeah, fully agree. And also, equally, responsibility is on hotels or brands to make it easy for people to be sustainable, which I
Yeah,
think RAAS does really well. Like, that's what even Climes, initially when we started out, we used to have a customer pays model, which we then shifted to a brand pays model, because honestly, it's on the brands to be taking that action, to be choosing to neutralize those emissions, and
correct.
to make it easy for a person to say, okay, this purchase, I can make it a climate friendly one if I buy from this brand.
Yeah,
So I think RAAS does that incredibly well, and the way you've designed sustainability into the experience of being at a RAAS hotel is really, really cool. One line I read actually the other day was standing out by blending into the environment, which I think was used to describe the Chhatrasagar property, because of the work you've done there. So if you could talk us through a little bit of how you've put that together.
well, Chhatrasagar actually, it was a camp started by two brothers, Nandi Vardhan and Harshvardhan of Nimaj. They had been running a camp there since 2000 or 1998 or something. And I think in 2000, they actually stopped farming their lands. And that's the first time we had actually heard of rewilding. Now it's become a much more talked about subject. But I think in 2000 it wasn't really, and I had only heard. I visited that place much later, but I had heard that they were doing this, and it also, instinctively you knew they were doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Turning it back into grassland or jungle or whatever. So we were, in fact, we only came onto the scene in say 2019 when they approached us if we'd like to, build a. They were going to wind down their camp, and they were interested. Wanted to know if we were interested in running a new camp there. And I'd heard. I think I last went in 2009 or 10. So I went there in this 19 or maybe 18 summer. And we took a drive around. There was, water in the lake. We saw all the rewilded land. And it kind of fit into all our, what our vision of our hotels, my brother and mine, what our sort of vision for our hotels we wanted them to be. So in 2019 we started constructing, and unfortunately COVID came just then. But also that year we had the heaviest, while we were constructing, we had the heaviest monsoon thing. The lake filled up to about 40 feet, which it had not for 30, 40 years. And I know it was a great omen. So we felt, even though it was painful for the construction workers, but we felt it was a good omen.
Yeah.
And now we are, so we've carried on the same practices as the owners, and we hope now we're talking to a few agencies. We want to have a slightly more, bring in a little more, now that we had a very good rewilded stage, we would like to bring in some, scientists and maybe some wildlife organizations to see what what more can we do. What more can we do there in terms of, we need to plant a few more species of trees, or, it gets a lot of migratory birds. Is there something we can do to help them? Or even on water conservation, creating some more check dams or something to ensure that the lake always gets its fair share of water, because in Rajasthan it is becoming a problem now with damming, with mining and some irresponsible damming. Old traditional lakes are not filling up the way they used to. All the old lakes were beautifully designed, that they captured maximum water from their sort of catchment area. That's not happening anymore. There's some very old historic dams which are struggling now to fill up every year. But this year has been exceptionally wet. But sorry.
No, I was saying that even though it's a camp compared to the other hotel properties, for example, it's still very much a luxury property. So I was thinking about this definition of sustainability and luxury, and in my work I've often tried to redefine the two, in that being sustainable is the new luxury, ideally. Do you see a similar redefinition of the terms? How can we make this more apparent, that people consider sustainability as luxury, so they therefore pay a premium just for sustainability?
Well, I think, if you talk about Chhattisgarh, I think the real luxury is that there's a large, there's a lake, and then it's got a decent amount of land around it. So you're protected from excessive lights and excessive sounds and excessive smoke or pollution. So I think people totally get that it's that is the luxury you're going there for. Our tents are luxurious in the sense they're comfortable. I think they're beautifully designed by the same Studio Lotus with Amrish, and I think they're beautifully designed. They are designed also for you to be able to enjoy the lake to the maximum. It has beautiful views to the lake, and the forest on one side. So I think definitely people are already paying more for this experience, and I think in the future, if we're not careful, they'll have to pay even more. So I think people understand that, because if you want to be in remote places, things are going to be I think our general tolerance to heat and probably the cold has gone down. So we want a perfect situation at 24 degrees. But I think it's all moving in the right direction. People are realizing now, the mistakes we've made. So I think people will pay more for that. Hotels which are more sustainable than others. I don't think hotels in general are sustainable, but some are more sustainable than the others.
But I mean, you must still come across people in the industry that say that sustainability doesn't make good business sense for them as a hotel. Because even now, a hotel like a RAAS is very, I feel, unique in how much it cares about sustainability still.
Well, we care for sustainability on on a personal level, on a company level, and also from a business point of view. If you're thinking slightly long term, it's the only way you will be able to sustain your business. Especially
Yeah.
especially a hotel in a holiday sort of destination. Should Jodhpur get any hotter, it's going to become, probably, you can visit a couple of months in the year. If you had,
Yeah.
you had a hotel in Goa and you're hit by monsoons and strong winds and storms, or by climate change, it's going to affect your business. So I think people, only people who have very short-term horizon are not seeing the writing on
Yeah.
the wall.
Yeah. I hope more people do see it, because I still feel like, the shift is happening, but not as fast as maybe we would like it. But then, of course, there are some people who really drive that forward. So it's a
I think
balance.
also not everyone is, even though we're just four small hotels and we're a team of 450 people. It's not enough to make a huge impact, but it's at least what's within our sort of control. Though not everything is
Yeah.
in your control, but at least there we can try and make a difference. We have
Yeah.
we have 450 team members. We keep impressing upon them. Hopefully, they take that message home.
Yeah.
So the way I look at the hotels is very much like a community. We're a community we have a physical sort of space. We have our hotel guests, we have our team members, we have our vendors. And those are how I see, we work. If we giving this messaging is through that community.
Yeah, that is equally impactful. Even if you can't, as a hotel, make as much impact as, say, like a country can,
Yeah.
just in teaching 400 people in anything that you do is in itself a huge network effect that will help.
Yeah, and hopefully people come and stay in our hotels, go home and say, oh, I could add this
Yeah,
altered nozzle, or I could,
yeah,
whatever small things we do, I think the key thing is to be mindful, mindful of every decision we take as an organization. That's the key thing, to be mindful all the time, because there's no written script that this is how you're going to be sustainable. It's
yeah.
everyday practices, being mindful, little things which will make the difference.
Totally agree. And even once before you said that technology would never replace the human element that comes with customer service at RAAS. And even after integrating a company like Climes, which is, of course, a tech-focused company, you had ideas about how to turn the experience into a more meaningful, direct, and impactful one by giving guests the option to see how the emissions were being neutralized by visiting the project where, say, the trees were being planted or regenerative agriculture practices were happening, so that they remain connected to the nature and the impact. And I think that was a really important thing that you asked for and brought up, because it's just important for even people like us who are working on solving the problem to remind ourselves what we're actually working for and be in touch with it and see it on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So outside of work, how do you spend your time or remain connected to nature in that way?
Well, luckily the hotels are nice places to be in.
Yeah.
But I'm lucky we have a family farm, which also we are rewilding. About 6-7 years ago, we stopped using fertilizers and pesticides and all that. And now in the last few years, have slowed down the farming as well. So I find, I find that I find it a very peaceful place. Not everyone knows where it is, so you can head out there. The phone barely works. But I think, seeing it change over the last 5-7 years, it's changed a fair amount. And I think what's nice is that it's because it's a sort of, for me, I see 6-7 years, it's sort of a holistic, it's becoming nothing jars out there. Otherwise, I find, wherever you go now, out in the countryside or something, there's always something out of place. Whether it's a telephone tower, or it's a high-rise building, or it's some one of those ugly water tanks we see all over India, or something. There's always jarring. So my aim there is that to really take it back to the way it must have been 100 years ago, where where the water was clean, where the soil was clean, where the wildlife was not impaired or affected. So that's my little private project.
Reminds me a lot of my parents also. I mean, I'm very grateful to them. Growing up, we used to spend all our time in places like this, trekking, fishing, up in the mountains. No signal, no phone. Sometimes I would get upset as a child, like, oh, I'm away from friends for 2-3 months in the year. We were just gone. But now I really, really value it. And I think now that's what everybody is also hoping for and looking for, especially post-COVID. People want to go as far and remote as into the jungles as much as possible.
No, and I think
and
also
it's becoming less and less possible.
Yeah, and I think they're also realizing that you need to go further and further away.
Yeah.
I recently went to Manali, and I was lucky we were staying further up, but the amount of construction there, so you need to, you'll need to go further and further.
Yeah, it's quite terrifying actually that like there may be nothing left. So it's good to know that, I mean, some people are working on preserving those places as much as possible. And I mean, firmly believe that as someone who loves traveling, we shouldn't have to choose between traveling and saving the planet, like seeing the world and saving it.
Correct.
And the fact that traveling can be so detrimental for the planet is really a tragedy. So that's why I love working for Climes, because it's helping to find a solution for this, where you can live a kind of lifestyle that we enjoy, but do it in a way that preserves the planet.
Unfortunately, we human beings, we only learn by our own mistakes. So we've made the mistakes now, and hopefully we're learning from it.
Yeah, but I mean, with brands like RAAS setting examples, I think that we're definitely well placed. Because, I mean, in our time as Climes, looking at who are Gen Z actors, who is in Generation Climate, we've come across some really true believers and champions for the environment. But I think I can confidently say that few come close to the change and impact that you have brought to the industry. Single-handedly.
I think that's very kind of you. I think you were slight, but thank you for saying that.
So makes me just feel very happy to work with you and to see what comes from it in the future. And thank you very much for being here today and sharing all your thoughts and experiences with us.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I too look forward to working with Climes.
Sounds great.